Hi, in today's episode, we're taking a look at one of the most frequently asked questions when it comes to product information management systems, or PIM systems. How much does it cost to implement and maintain one? The benefits of implementing a PIM, such as optimizing the time needed to prepare an offer, supporting search engines and filters, efficient management of translations, or measuring data completeness, are invaluable. You're surely aware, however, that effective PIM implementation comes with costs, and estimating them isn't simple. It's important that every business decision is well thought out. That's why today's episode aims to present the factors that influence the cost of implementing a PIM system, which you should take into account when estimating your implementation budget. I'll present these factors in random order, because each one is equally important and may apply to your situation to a different extent. As I mentioned, estimating implementation costs is not easy. So remember, you can always seek help from specialists, for example, from our company, Macopedia. To get a realistic cost estimate tailored to your company's needs, contact us, and together we'll determine your requirements, which PIM system will be best for you, and what implementation costs you should expect. Before we get into the details, if you haven't seen our previous episodes about the benefits of implementing PIM systems, I encourage you to catch up. This is a perfect introduction to today's topic. Ready? Let's start. Now, let's move on to the first of the key factors that affect the cost of implementing a product information management system, or PIM. That factor is the complexity of your product offering. It's a simple rule. The larger and more diverse your product portfolio, the more complex your data structure will be, which naturally leads to higher costs and a longer implementation time. Let's take a closer look at a company with a rich assortment of products, where each one comes in many variants. Additionally, each product is characterized by dozens of distinct attributes, along with comprehensive detailed documentation, user manuals, high-quality photos, compelling marketing features, clear icons, and even informative videos demonstrating how the products truly work. Such an extensive product page is a huge advantage for customers, who can thoroughly review the product specifications, compare individual offers, filter them, and watch video materials. For companies with such an extensive portfolio, implementing a PIM system is much more complicated. This requires a longer analytical phase, during which it is necessary to determine in detail how best to organize the data in the system, plan work processes, and decide which other systems the PIM should be integrated with. For large companies that need to manage multiple categories and hundreds, if not thousands, of products, this is especially important. Although the implementation is more complex and costly, it is these large enterprises that most often experience the greatest benefits from effective product information management. As a result, despite higher initial expenses, they notice the positive outcomes of PIM implementation more quickly. To sum up, the complexity of the product offering is a significant factor that directly affects the cost of implementing a PIM system. Any company considering the implementation of such a solution should take this aspect into account when planning both the budget and the project timeline. Another important factor influencing the cost of implementing a PIM system is integration with other IT systems. Although implementing a PIM on its own provides an excellent internal knowledge base, the key question is how to make it a source of knowledge for customers as well. This is where PIM system integrations with other platforms, such as e-commerce systems or websites, come into play. When designing information exchange workflows, it's also worth considering integration with the ERP system, which can serve as a data source for selected product attributes. Additionally, it's worth including integration with systems that support product publication on marketplaces, such as BaseLinker, as well as with tools for creating product documentation and catalogs, like Adobe InDesign. When preparing a company for PIM implementation, it's crucial to thoroughly identify which systems will use the data stored in the PIM, and which will supply the PIM system with the necessary information. Designing the target system architecture and establishing the flow of product information will help determine how many integrations will be needed and at what stage of the project it is best to implement them, whether already at the MVP stage or in later phases of the rollout. The costs of these integrations depend on the chosen methods. Will it be data exchange via API, building a data bus, or integration using flat files? The more data we want to exchange and the more complex the data transformations between systems are. For example, when data from the ERP system needs to be transformed to fit the data format in the PIM, the more advanced and costly the integration process becomes. However, let's remember that investing in integration is worthwhile. It is only through well-thought-out and properly executed integrations that it becomes possible to achieve the key benefits of implementing PIM, such as accelerating product time to market and minimizing the risk of errors in specifications. Automatic data exchange between systems eliminates the need for manual information processing, which significantly reduces the risk of mistakes and increases operational efficiency. Another important factor is the range of functionalities in the PIM system that you care about. There are several PIM systems available on the market, including Akeneo and Pinker. Each of these systems can store and structure product data, so they will fulfill the basic role of a PIM system. However, when we look more closely, we discover that the functionalities available in these systems differ, and being aware of what characterizes each of these systems will help you decide which PIM system will meet the expectations and requirements of your organization. Additionally, it's worth noting that some system functionalities are only available after purchasing a license. Therefore, you should analyze whether the basic version of the system, that is, the free, open-source version, will meet your needs, or if you would prefer to invest in a license that guarantees access to advanced features and allows you to fully utilize the tool's potential. Now, let's take a closer look at the costs. Implementing the open-source version of the system will involve the cost of purchasing a server on which you will need to install the system, and possibly the cost of support from an implementation partner. If you decide to work with a company specializing in such projects for the implementation of the PIM system, and additionally, if you choose to purchase a license, you need to add this cost to the implementation expenses, which ranges from several to several dozen thousand zlotys per year. Another factor that significantly affects the cost of implementing a PIM system is the time required to migrate data to the new system. At the beginning of the process, we model the PIM system, but initially it does not yet contain data about our products and their specifications. A key stage of the implementation is therefore importing data for products currently being sold, and often also archival data, which allows access to the complete product database. Adding data for a large number of products can be a time-consuming process, especially when this data is scattered across different parts of the organization. This often requires gathering all the data in one place and arranging it properly in an import file, which must meet the specific requirements of the PIM system. Each data element needs to be prepared according to a defined template, which further extends the process. If you need the support of an implementation partner during the entire process, this can further increase the implementation costs. These costs may rise depending on the complexity of the data, its volume, and the transformations that need to be carried out before importing it into the PIM system. That's why it's important to carefully plan and anticipate the resources needed for these activities, which will help optimize the total budget for the system implementation. The next factor affecting the cost of implementing a PIM system is user training. Usually, key team members and the implementation partner's team participate in a PIM system rollout. However, an important aspect is handing the system over to the end users, which involves encouraging employees to abandon their previous, well-known data management processes, such as using Excel files, in favor of working directly in the new PIM system. User training is an extremely important stage, as it allows them to learn how to use the new tool correctly and efficiently. Offering a system demo and sharing knowledge about its functionalities are crucial for enabling users to navigate the PIM system with ease, which increases their comfort at work and their efficiency. It is also important to remember to regularly refresh training sessions for both current and newly hired employees. Effective training helps minimize barriers to adapting to the new system and maximizes its use in everyday work. Although these training sessions generate initial costs, they are an investment in long-term efficiency and satisfaction with working with the system, which ultimately translates into the overall success of the PIM system implementation project. The greater the involvement of the internal team during the PIM system implementation, the lower the overall project cost can be. This happens because the involvement of the organization's employees in processes such as organizing data and importing it into the system can significantly speed up the project work. And as we know, the faster the project is completed, the lower its costs will be. It is important not to rely solely on the actions and expertise of the implementation partner. Although partners possess specialized knowledge about the PIM system and best practices for organizing product data, they do not know the specifics of the products, the industry, or all the nuances that are only familiar to the employees of a given organization. Therefore, a key aspect is the cooperation and involvement of both parties, the internal team and the external implementation partner. Close collaboration not only enables a smoother execution of the project, but also allows for more efficient use of resources and time, which directly translates into cost reduction. It is therefore important for employees to be open to new things and ready to actively participate in the project, as this will increase the chances of its success, enable the effective implementation of the PIM system, and ultimately benefit the entire organization. When discussing the costs associated with implementing a PIM system, it is impossible to overlook an important aspect: post-implementation support. After the implementation process itself is completed, the organization faces new challenges related to the day-to-day operation of the system. These include maintaining the efficiency of the PIM system, overseeing the proper functioning of integrations, handling emerging errors, providing technical support when making changes to the system, expanding the system's functionality with new attributes, product families, or adding additional rules. Due to the complexity of the PIM system and the need for its continuous adaptation and improvement, it is recommended that after the implementation phase is completed, the organization enters the system maintenance phase. It is crucial to maintain constant contact with the implementation partner, who not only knows the specifics of the implemented solution but is also able to quickly respond to emerging challenges and the need for changes. After implementation, the PIM system comes to life within the organization, which means that users start asking questions. New training needs arise among newly hired employees, as well as the necessity to respond quickly to unforeseen situations. Ongoing cooperation with an experienced implementation partner and their continuous support for the system therefore play a significant role not only in the context of day-to-day operations, but also in the long-term development and effective use of the PIM system within the company. Moving on to the last factor, it's worth emphasizing that implementing a PIM system on your own can turn out to be a real challenge. If the factors affecting implementation costs that we discussed today are causing you concern, it's worth considering seeking help from specialists. Going it alone carries the risk of making mistakes in designing the data template and the logic of its organization, which can later be difficult to fix. Errors in data structuring can reduce the system's efficiency, decrease user satisfaction, and make it harder to build integrations with other systems. There are examples of clients who initially managed to implement the PIM system on their own, but as the company grew, the system stopped meeting their expectations. After conducting an implementation audit, it often turns out that the data needs a complete reorganization. For this reason, many companies decide to work with an experienced implementation partner. Our company, Macopedia, is a good example of this. Thanks to our extensive experience, product knowledge, and familiarity with a variety of business cases, we know how to properly implement a PIM system and apply best practices. Investing in close cooperation with an experienced implementation partner ensures comprehensive security both in terms of proper and robust data model design and in building effective integrations and correctly organizing business processes. It often turns out that implementing a PIM system entirely on your own is significantly more expensive and carries a much greater risk than the initial investment in professional assistance and expert guidance. To sum up, the key factors influencing the cost of implementing a PIM system are the complexity of the product offering. The greater the number of products and their attributes, the more complicated the design becomes. PIM integrations with other systems, such as e-commerce or ERP, which require complex technical solutions and significantly impact costs. High functional requirements and the potential cost of purchasing a renewable PIM system license. Product data migration, the process of transferring existing data to the PIM system, which can be time-consuming and require specialized support, user training, which is crucial for later work efficiency, the involvement of the implementation team, which can significantly reduce costs and speed up project delivery, system maintenance, including costs related to ongoing support, updates, and troubleshooting, and the cost of working with an implementation partner, who provides support and ensures the success of the implementation. In our opinion, these elements are the foundation for thoughtful planning and effective cost management when implementing a PIM system. Okay, now we know the factors that need to be considered when estimating the cost of implementation. You're probably wondering, though, how much such an implementation might actually cost. It's very difficult to give a clear-cut answer to that question. Every implementation and every organization is different, and the requirements for the system can vary greatly, which, as you know, significantly affects the cost of implementation. It can be estimated that a basic system implementation, excluding integration costs, ranges from 50 to 150,000 zlotys. On the other hand, implementing the system in a large organization, importing data, integrating the PIM with several source and recipient systems, as well as training, costs 300,000 zlotys and up. However, don't get too attached to the numbers I just mentioned. Estimating implementation costs is a very individual matter. Maybe in your case, we'll be able to optimize some costs or not have to consider them at all. If you're the one responsible for implementing the PIM system in your organization, try to think about the factors we've discussed today and initially answer these questions. How extensive is my product portfolio? What kind of data would I like to store about the product in the PIM? How many systems are operating in my company that might potentially need to be integrated with the system? What are my requirements for the PIM system? Am I planning training sessions for users? Do I have the right team to support me in organizing the data and preparing the organization for the PIM implementation? Do I want to use the support of an implementation partner to efficiently and without the risk of making critical mistakes implement the PIM system? If you answered yes to the last question, we invite you to get in touch. We would be happy to take a closer look at your company and advise you on which PIM system to choose. I hope that today's episode has provided you with valuable knowledge. You can also find additional information about implementation costs in our post on the Macopedia blog, the link to which you'll find in the episode description. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or contact us through our website or LinkedIn. Thanks for today, and see you next time.